Welcome back to Inside City Hall. They're out of the White House, but the Clintons can't seem to escape controversy. Now Hillary Clinton is in the eye of the storm. She's caught up in the furor over her husband's pardons, and she's under attack for accepting lavish gifts from supporters on the eve of her swearing in as senator. It's not the best way to impress one's new colleagues on Capitol Hill. Will it all blow over? Join me tonight, Bruce Blakeman, former head of the Nassau County Legislature, a Republican, and Democratic strategist Lincoln Mitchell. Welcome to Inside City Hall.
Thank you.
We are going to take phone calls about the presidential pardons, Andrew Cuomo running for governor, a lot more. Let me get a quick take from both of you first. Bruce Blakeman, Hillary Clinton, is she damaged by all this talk about presidential pardons? Does she deserve to be damaged, and will it last?
Well, there's a stench to the pardons. Obviously, the fact that fundraising was going on and huge contributions were being made to the Democratic Party, and specifically to Hillary Clinton's campaign. And you have people like Denise Rich doing so on behalf of her ex-husband, who fled the United States and has been living in the lap of luxury in Switzerland with counts and charges against him ranging from racketeering to mail fraud, wire fraud, trading with an enemy of the United States. These are very serious charges, and I think that it is going to have some effect on Hillary Clinton and her ability to come out of the box in her first couple of years as United States Senator.
What do you think, Lincoln Mitchell?
I think one thing we've learned about Hillary Clinton watching her New York career over the last year or two is that there's a lot of people out there that really don't like her, and whether the new news is good news or bad news, and a lot of people out there who really do like her, that's not going to change. I don't think this is a good story. I think she takes a hit for a few days, even a few weeks, and moves on.
Is she being fairly cast as having acted unethically or not?
I think it's the gray area there. I don't think you can say this is 100% upright ethical behavior, and I don't think you can say this is, stealing money or being on the take. It's somewhere in between.
Well, it smacks of a quid pro quo, and I think that's where it may have some legs to it, because...
Which is the quid pro quo you're referring to?
Well, political contributions for pardons. For instance, in the community of Kiryas Joel, where the four Hasidic businessmen had their sentences commuted, in that community, they voted for Hillary Clinton by about 80 to 90%. In every other Hasidic community, in every other Orthodox community throughout the state of New York, Rick Lazio got 80 or 85% of the vote. That's a very strange circumstance.
I want to cut you short because I want to take as many calls as possible. Let's start with Tom in Queens. Good evening, Tom.
Hi, yeah. I'd like to know don't you think the media is being a little harsh, at least on the Rich pardon? Shouldn't we wait to see the results of the civil trial?
I don't think so. I think basically you have somebody who's facing a multitude of counts, as I said, from anywhere from racketeering to trading with an enemy. And he fled this country, lived for 17 years in Switzerland. Prosecutors, the Justice Department officials were outraged that the Clintons pardoned Mark Rich. And the fact of the matter is that there is that stench because of the alleged quid pro quo of campaign contributions for the pardons.
What do you think?
I think there's a lot of people out there who don't like the Clintons. Bruce is obviously one of them. Some folks in the media are among that, and there's a lot of people out there that are pushing this story. I don't think they're being entirely fair, but the Clintons will get over this. Every time there's a concerted effort to attack the Clintons, the benefits are the Clintons and the Democratic Party.
Okay, let's take another call from Barbara in Manhattan. Go ahead, Barbara.
Yes, my name is Barbara, and I'd like to ask a question. Why is the media focusing on the pardons of the rich family when Bush is proposing an enormous tax cut for the rich, which the New York Times said today could destroy state economies? There are ways now that they could get around paying any taxes at all, which could destroy, as I said, state economies. Why is the rich pardon more important than the destruction of state economy by a tax cut?
The estate tax issue, which is what Barbara is referring, is a very serious issue, and it's this issue that really can restructure how capitalism works in the United States, and in some ways that are not entirely positive. However, to some extent, a Bush proposing a non-entirely rational tax cut is not news, and that's probably why they're not covering it too much.
What do you think?
Well, I certainly wouldn't equate tax cuts with pardons that were done in what many people believe is an outrageous way. We're talking about the rule of law, we're talking about ethics, we're talking about morality. And if you want to mix apples with oranges, I don't think it's appropriate. However, if you want to talk about the tax cuts, many people in the United States and many people in this state and in this city believe that a death tax, and that's what it is an inappropriate way to raise revenues. It's taxing someone their whole life, and they've been able to accumulate a family-owned business or a family farm, and now the government comes in, charges them an enormous tax. They have to break up a company, they have to break up a farm, destroy the product of hard work and the labors of people who have done well in this country and created jobs and prosperity. I think that's the wrong kind of tax.
I don't think the beneficiaries, and let's be honest here, of the Bush tax proposal are not the small business person who's built up a firm of worth a couple $100,000 or even a couple of $1 million. Some of the beneficiaries are people with values in the net worths of the tens or the hundreds of $1 million. And taking that money out of tax coffers, more interestingly, taking the incentive to give to charity away from those wealthy people will have a very strong effect on our economy and on our tax revenues. Now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, if this happens, people will be a lot less concerned with Mark Rich and a lot more concerned with what's happening to our budget.
John in Manhattan, what are you concerned with tonight?
Well, I have a question. I'm wondering for Mr. Blakeman how he thinks the ethics of the pardon of Mr. Rich and his crimes compare with the ethics of the pardon of all the people involved in the Iran-Contra scandal by George Bush Sr.
Well, I think there is a difference. I think basically what you have here is the ability to issue pardons based upon the ability of people to contribute to campaigns and whether or not there was a quid pro quo. In the Iran-Contra, it didn't revolve around someone who is facing enormous amounts of crimes, as I said, very serious crimes, being pardoned. In this circumstance, I think that it's totally different from Iran-Contra. And in Iran-Contra, at least you could say that there might have been a misguided governmental reason for engaging in activity that might be improper. But apparently Mr. Rich's activities were improper. He was facing numerous indictments, and he would have faced a tremendous amount of years in jail.
You agree?
No, Mark Rich is at best or at worst, depending on how you look at it, a white-collar, affluent criminal. Iran-Contra was a concerted effort to skirt the Constitution, and I think that that's a much more serious issue. So I think there are apples and oranges, and Iran-Contra was much more serious of the two.
Okay, Elaine in Manhattan, what do you think?
According to the New York Times today, there was a graph showing that pardons going back to Truman, there were thousands. Bush's number of pardons is not nearly as much as anybody except our last Bush president, but I mean Clinton's pardons are not nearly as many.
Right, we saw that story. Right. Does that influence you?
Well, I don't think it's the number of pardons that have people up in arms. I think it's the quality of the pardons. Circumventing the pardon process as the president did for an Arkansas businessman, the potential for a possible quid pro quo for the Hasidic businessmen, the campaign contributions that were made by the Rich family to the Democratic Party and to Hillary Clinton's campaign. Those are the troubling aspects of the pardons, not the fact that the number of pardons that were made by President Clinton.
Okay, folks, why don't we take a break right now? We'll have a lot more with my guests. When we return, we'll take more of your phone calls. Also, let's broaden this out, talk about the governor's race, Andrew Cuomo, Carl McCall, the mayor's race. Stay with us. Welcome back to Inside City Hall. We're talking about the governor's race, the mayor's race, and presidential pardons. Anything you want, let us now speak to Carmine in Queens. Go ahead, Carmine.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Regarding Andrew Cuomo's announced run for the governorship, I just think he takes a lot of gall on his part. I mean, he's a fella never elected to any office. Let him start small. Claire Schulman is stepping down. Let him run for Queensborough president and do something small. What makes him so special that he's got to go right to the governor's
Would
mansion?
you vote for him for Queensborough president?
I wouldn't vote for him for dog catcher, but that's beside the point.
What do you think, Bruce Blakeman? Is he qualified to be governor?
Well, Carmine, let me say this. I think that basically he has shown that when given very important jobs that he has been able to do the job. I don't believe that he's the most qualified to be governor of the state of New York. I don't believe that he's going to win the Democratic primary. I still think that Carl McCall, and I have a little experience with this, I think Carl McCall is the strongest Democratic elected official in the state, and that is probably the strongest candidate. And I believe that Carl McCall, at this point, would have the advantage in the Democratic primary. But I would say this, I think either one of them would lose to Governor Pataki, because Governor Pataki has an outstanding record as governor over the last 8 years, cutting taxes and bringing prosperity back to New York State.
What do you think?
I certainly agree that Andrew Cuomo is going to have a tough primary against Carl McCall. He's going to be a very strong candidate. He's built a strong political organization, and he's very well liked both within and without the party and outside of the party.
You working for either Cuomo or McCall?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Why don't we take another call, this one from Don in Queens. Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, hi. Governor Mario Cuomo purposely short-circuited Carol Bellamy from running against Carl McCall in the primary because he wanted to give Carl the first shot at having an African-American as comptroller. And now he earned the right to run for governor. He's in his 60s, and Anthony's in his 40s.
What's your question?
Anthony should rather run for comptroller or some other position first.
That's Andrew. But what's your call? What is your question, Mr. Caller?
Is it fair for Andrew to try to knock off Carl McCall when the man really deserved the shot before he does?
I think it's absolutely fair. This is a democracy. If you think you can be a good governor, you run for it and you try to demonstrate that to the people. I don't think anyone deserves anything in a democracy. You have to earn it. Okay,
let's go back to Hillary Clinton those pardons. Joe Manhattan, what's your question?
Yes, I'm wondering if either of these guests foresee or advocate any legislation that might prevent the kind of presents and gifting that Mr. and Mrs. Clinton just received for their new homes?
Good question, Bruce Blakeman.
Yeah, I definitely do. I think that, again, there's the appearance of impropriety when someone who's an elected official is accepting gifts of that magnitude from people, and I think that that appearance of impropriety, it taints the whole political system. I believe, I'm a firm believer that the American people want to believe in this system, that they come out to vote, that they have faith in their elected officials. And I think when they hear about gifts like this, I think it cracks the foundation of the government.
I think the congressional Republicans' obsession with the Clintons and with bringing them down has been the best thing that's happened to the Democratic Party over the last 6 years. And if they're dumb enough to continue this obsession into the Bush presidency, well, that's great news for the Democratic Party.
Okay, we've got a Republican and a Democrat here taking your phone calls. Debbie in Queens, what's your question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, my question is, why is Hillary Clinton hiding ever since she's been accused of giving pardons and for campaign contributions and votes? She hasn't been on any of the talk shows on Sunday, although everyone would love to have her. Why is she hiding from the media if she has nothing to hide?
You saw her answer reporters' questions today, mostly saying she had no opinion about the matter. That didn't satisfy you?
No, of course it didn't. I'm a taxpayer in New York State, and she's my senator, and I want her to answer these questions. I want her to explain how she's been at all these fundraisers and why all these people who were in for minor drug offenses were not even considered to be pardoned, which adds up to thousands of people.
Lincoln Mitchell?
I don't think Hillary's been altogether invisible. I think actually today she made a very important statement that she was going to vote against Ashcroft and Gail Norton. So I don't think she's been invisible. I think she's trying to talk about some of the important things that she will be doing as a senator, not least of which is voting against those two confirmations.
Well, I definitely think she's ducking that question concerning the pardons. Look, Hillary Clinton is a very good politician, and when she wants to use the power of her husband's presidency, as she has in the past, saying that she's an insider, that she's involved in the process, and that she has the presidency, or she's used that. And now that it's become a liability, she said that she did not discuss it with her husband. She had nothing to do with it. And, of course, nobody really believes that.
Jim in Queens, what's your question tonight?
Hi. I was wondering if the Republicans are so concerned about apparent quid pro quos for money being donated, why are they constantly against campaign finance reform, both in the local area and in Washington?
Questions for you.
Yeah, well, I think that basically Republicans want an even playing field, and they don't want a situation whereby people who are normally tend to give to the Democratic Party have a leg up on other types of contributors. Specifically, I would say labor unions. I think that basically they're going to say that if you're not going to allow businesses to contribute to candidates, labor unions should have some controls as well so that they don't have an unfair advantage over businesses.
The amount of money, corporate PAC money and corporate soft money of the Republican Party dwarfs the money that labor unions give, and that needs to be out there publicly as something people understand when they talk about campaign finance reform. The reason Republicans don't want to reform campaign finance is that they're the party of capital and of big business and of moneyed interests, and that's why they don't want to do it.
They happen to be the party, I guess, of people who employ people, create prosperity, build schools, and build the infrastructure for this great country, and that's a bad thing if you happen to be a Democrat.
Let's turn our attention to Rudy Giuliani. Nick in Manhattan, what's your question?
Yes, Mayor Giuliani recommended that the Congress investigate the Rich pardon. Do you agree with this, and why?
Who are you asking the question of? The Democrat or the Republican guy?
Both.
Let's start with you, Mr. Democrat.
I think Mayor Giuliani should concentrate on governing in New York City. If he really had so many thoughts of what Congress should have been doing, he should have tried to get there when he had a shot.
Bruce Blakeman?
Unless they find any tangible evidence or credible evidence that there was, in fact, a quid pro quo, they should let it go, because the one thing I will agree with my Democratic counterpart is that the Republicans have not been too successful in attacking the Clintons, even though I think that they were justified. The Clintons are just masterful at manipulating the media, and to do so, I think, might be at the peril of the Republicans.
As well as bringing prosperity and reducing the debt and keeping the country out of war, which are also some of the reasons why it's been tough for the Republicans.
Thank God he had a Republican Congress.
Matt in Queens, what's your question?
Yes, I'd like to know what your guests think about Herman Badillo for mayor.
What's your feeling about him before I ask them?
I think he'd be a terrific candidate. He seems to be getting exposure in the education field, and if he could sort of broaden his rhetoric, I think he would be good if he can get the endorsement of the mayor and hopefully the governor.
My understanding is that he had suspended his campaign. Having said that, I think he would be an intriguing candidate for mayor. I think that he would be able to potentially reach out to Latino support, particularly if Fernando Ferrer loses the Democratic primary. I think he could plausibly run as a more human, more thoughtful, more friendly Republican, and would do a lot to change the face of the Republican Party in New York. I think if he's serious about running, Giuliani should back him.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think Herman Badillo makes a very credible candidate, and I think that he's probably weighing that decision right now. He does have appeal to the Hispanic communities, and he has appeal to a broad base of support throughout the city of New York, and I think he ought to consider it.
Bruce Blakeman, Lincoln Mitchell, thank you both very much for your time, your expertise, your wisdom. It is time for a break. Stay with us.
Kraft presents